When you accomplish something that took you forever to do, the sense of accomplishment is often accompanied by a gnawing sense of emptiness. Your brain is like, yeah, I did it! But then it's left with the question of, now what? And you don't know how to deal with it. This phenomenon is called the post-project blues, and it directly parallels how I felt when, after 9 months of streaming it on Twitch, I finally finished Mario & Luigi's Superstar Saga. The rest of the video is upbeat, I promise. I may be meta64, but I'm going to turn to beta64 for a little bit. So, this story begins with RPG development studio Alpha Dream, who, by 2001, had created a couple of RPGs for Nintendo's Game Boy line of handhelds. The studio had been founded by ex-president of Squaresoft, Tetsuo Mizuno, who had been at Squaresoft during their golden age of RPGs, working as an executive producer on Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy III, and most notably, Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. However, he was then forced to resign in 1998, and 2 years later would go on to found Alpha Dream. Alpha Dream released 2 RPGs before the Mario & Luigi series, and it's the second one that's really interesting. Tomato Adventure, released for the Game Boy Advance in 2002, had mini-games inside battles. This battle system would eventually influence the battle system we see in Superstar Saga. Fast forward a little bit, and Nintendo was quite intrigued by what Alpha Dream was developing into Tomato Adventure, and they sent a little message basically saying, hey, you want to make an Mario RPG XOXO Nintendo? And Alpha Dream basically said, yeah, we'd love to. And so it got to work. The main idea behind this new Mario RPG was a focus on both of the brothers, not just Mario. In an interview with Nintendo to promote the game, even though it was already out by that point, Hiroyuki Kubota, the game's main field design lead scenario person, said, until now, Mario had always been a protagonist and Mario was a superstar, so I tried to line up Luigi, a younger brother who wasn't exposed to much sunlight, in parallel. However, it is difficult to personalize in exactly the same role, so I decided to make each character stand out. The result is what we see in Superstar Saga. So that's where we started, and the end result is amazing. One of the main reasons why this game works so well is because of the amazing characters you run into along the way. The Mushroom Kingdom characters haven't changed that much from the familiar archetypes we've known for years, but they have some slight tweaks to their character, freshening the Mushroom Kingdom to a point that you still feel like you're at home, but there's a new charm that wasn't there before. Once you get into the Bean Kingdom though, the characters go from good to truly amazing. Each of the characters in Bean really stand out from the normal Mario characters by not really having specific archetypes to go by. What really sets them apart from these characters we already know is the personality that each new character has. For example, Prince Peasley, the game really gives him the hero archetype and personality with a hint of royal smugness, or Popple, a tiny thief with a terrible temper and a huge ego for things that he doesn't even do. This guy's really annoying, by the way, I really fucking hate him. These two characters are just the tip of the iceberg for how people act in this game. Cackletta feels like the perfect villain to oppose both Mario and Luigi. Her plan feels perfectly orchestrated and her character reflects this. She has this level of cockiness because she knows that her plan will work, which is why her spirits drop when her plan doesn't work the first time, and when the brothers finally defeat her at the end of the game. It makes her defeat feel much more energizing. You're basically destroying her plan and making her look like a giant fucking fool. Fawful has the same personality being a sidekick and all, plus he feels like more like an annoying nuisance to the player than Cackletta, like a mini Cackletta to follow you around and piss you off while you try to finish the game. Each character feels super 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional. They're not just, oh, we need to stop Cackletta, or, oh, the Mushroom King will be mine. No, it's more like, if we don't stop Cackletta, our entire country may be reduced to rubble and we may have a worse life as a result, and once the Bean and Mushroom Kingdoms are mine, I will be the only superstar around here. And this is what makes the characters super compelling for players. The fact that the motivations are super detailed. They didn't have to do that at all. But they did it for us. Not only are the characters of Superstar Saga good at being compelling, they're also pretty damn funny. The humor in Superstar Saga was clearly the main thing they were going for while making this game's story and characters, and the results are spectacular. Most of the humor comes from Luigi's antics throughout the game, but other characters get their time to be funny too. The game seems to have a lot of parallels to anime in terms of the comedies and the reactions that characters do, you know, like when a character just falls over randomly. To me, the humor didn't really stick out to me, and most of the time I hardly noticed it. Not to say that it's not funny, I personally found the comedy I noticed to be very funny, and I genuinely did laugh, I just didn't notice it most of the time. Between the humor and the characters, Superstar Saga really starts off strong. You feel right at home with the brothers, and the new characters feel like they were in the Mario canon from the start. But the characters and humor are just one thing. The world that surrounds those two things makes them so much better. The second you land in Stardust Fields, you know you're in for quite a treat. The normal hills and grassy plains of a typical tutorial area for a Mario game are basically not here in the slightest. Instead, we get this crystal sand-like ground with rock formations. Bean Kingdom really sets itself apart from the Mushroom Kingdom by really deviating from the normal themes that we expect from Mario games. Alpha Dream experimented more with Bean, and it resulted in world-themed stagnation not being a problem that developers would have to face. Each part of Bean has its own distinct sprite set for each of its sections, giving them all a color scheme they can call their own. As well, each part of Bean has its own residents and different types of people you can talk to. They all feel so distinct and they fit in with each region. With Hoo Hoo Village, the residents look like cacti. In Bean Castle, the residents look like lima beans. So why is the world important to the game itself? Well, it allows the player to have a pretty landscape to look at, and it also allows the player to be really immersed in the world around them. Immersion is something that games can struggle with a lot. It's hard to get a player to be really in your world with just things on screen. Superstar Saga combats this by having each part of the world feel distinct with the points I've already mentioned, and it makes sure you're not in one place for too long. If you stay for too long, the environment loses their charm, and the same happens if you're out of there too quickly. So each part of the game feels like you're there for just long enough that you don't lose interest, and it keeps the player on their toes, waiting to see what they do with this place, what super cool idea / gimmick they're going to try out in this place over here. The world is another reason why this game works so well, but this wouldn't be a great RPG without a damn good combat system. The combat in Superstar Saga mostly revolves around using both of the brothers in combat, either by jumping, hammering, hand powering, and bros attacking the enemy. Each brother has his own distinct attack style, and while they share 2 attacks, everything else they have is completely their own. My personal favorite part of the combat system are the bros moves. Think of these as special attacks that each brother can execute. While normal attacks are executed and done by only one brother, bros moves are done by both brothers, opening up new possibilities for damage potential. Out of all the attacks that are in your arsenal between the 2 brothers, the bros moves are what I use quite a lot. They feel rewarding to pull off, they do a lot of damage, and they look super fucking cool in action. For bosses, spamming bros moves can decimate the health of any enemy or boss you come across. If you master these moves, you can eventually unlock advanced bros moves, which add more damage potential to your fights. In the 3DS remake, these moves are selectable just from the menu, but in the GB original, they're just a normal bros move with an extra button press. But the button press is extremely hard to time right. When you pull them off, however, they allow you to attack a lot more than once, and are even more satisfying to pull off, as they require knee-jerk reactions to really keep the rally going. I myself have never pulled off an advanced move because of the knee-jerk reactions needed for this, which can be a bit off-putting to players who have gotten good at controls but haven't mastered them fully yet. But for the masters of the controls, the advanced moves are amazing things to use, and like I said before, they feel good to use, and they also decimate bosses, so keep an eye out for that advanced sign during battle. Combat isn't just down to attacking enemies, however. The dodging mechanics, while primitive and simple, still have some depth to them. When the enemy attacks and you jump at the right time, you can counter their attack, giving you a little time to breathe and also dealing damage in response. Not only is this basically necessary to stay alive during the super chaotic boss fights, looking at you, Bowletta, it's also super satisfying to pull off counter after counter in rapid succession. And even better, since countering is so simplistic, new players are able to jump into countering like a sweat really quickly. The tutorial on how to do counters also ease new players in quickly and allowing newbies to get to be in the biggest sweat. Parrying is one thing, dodging is another. Bosses and enemies will have different color text, attacks or straight up will just turn to one of the brothers to indicate to the player which of them they're attacking. It's simplistic, sure, but it's simple enough that even people who don't usually play video games could understand it. But these indications can be really ignored by just doing this. But overall, combat in Superstar Saga is simplistic yet quite deep. You can play like a normal RPG, but it steadily pushes you to work with the mechanics to have in-game with the dodging, parrying, and attacks. Honest to God, this is the only RPG fighting system I've ever actually had fun with, and it feels so good to say that about a game like this. While I love and respect Superstar Saga and its game design, and I think it's a game that everyone should play, it isn't without its hardships. For one, I personally think that the game has a huge difficulty spike around Bowser's castle. The Koopaling fights are super annoying, especially the ones with a time bomb next to them. As well, I had problems hitting the fireballs back with Mario, as the game wasn't accepting the input I was sending, which resulted in many deaths and reloads. It really sucks because Bowser's castle is actually super well designed and it calls back to each and every power and ability you get in the game. It's just the fights with the Koopalings that really stick out as really annoying and serve to break the pace of the rest of the castle. The huge difficulty spike near the end isn't the only annoying part to me. The first part of the game shows a lot of tutorials in your face, destroying immersion in subsequent replays, while also being just a general nuisance to deal with. Thankfully, this isn't something that comes up a lot. Sure, there's the occasional part where they give you a tutorial, but it's for a brand new thing that you haven't seen up until that point, so I feel as though it gets a pass. There are also little singular parts of the game that feel annoying to be doing, or parts of the game that just don't feel right with the game's main mechanic. Mainly, Joke's End. God help me, I hate this place. Joke's End likes to separate the brothers for specific puzzles that pertain to their own special attacks. Now, that would be all fine and dandy if the game had already established some gameplay with the bros separated, but they hadn't. It only established a little bit, and it was quite linear anyway. The entirety of the game up until that point had been based around the brothers as a team, which makes the parts of Joke's End where the brothers are separated feel super off-putting and weird. As well, battles with the other brother feel super generic and uninspired. They feel as though you're playing just a typical RPG, basically destroying what made the game special in the first place. Joke's End is the antithesis to all of the game design already established beforehand, and it's the only part of the game where the brothers are separated for long stretches of time, making it stick out like a sore thumb. As the first game in the series, Superstar Saga set the stage for every other game in the series, and it does it so well. Not only are the fighting mechanics smooth like butter, but the world is diverse and full of life. The characters are deep and more than just your average RPG NPC, and the humor is able to get a chuckle out of the average game player, even someone who doesn't play video games. It can slip up a little bit on occasion, but these ideas and mechanics all combine in one of the most fun, frustrating, interesting, charmful games I've ever had the pleasure of playing, and it is more than worth your time to check this game out.